The sound began as a low hum, more felt than heard, seeping up from the floorboards and into my bones. I thought it was just my imagination. Too many ghost stories, not enough sleep. It was 2 in the morning. The old chapel at Immaculata University was supposed to be empty, its stained glass windows dark, a faint glow leaking from beneath the doors. Liam and I crouched outside the massive doors, the cold stone numbing our legs. Every sound was amplified in the darkness, the air thick with the scent of old incense and damp earth. The hum became a mournful chant, echoing from the chapel's stones, a melody that twisted through the empty pews, beautiful and terrifying. My heart pounded as I glanced at Liam. He was pale, hands trembling, both of us frozen between fear and curiosity. The dare was suddenly real. Every joke about haunted chapels felt hollow as the night pressed in and the shadows shifted. The legend of Sister Margaret, the nun who haunted the bell tower, felt less like a myth and more like a warning. With every note of that chant, her story became a threat. We came seeking a thrill but found something older and darker. The night belonged to the chapel, to the legend, and to whatever waited in the shadows chanting in the dark. Immaculata University is beautiful by day, but at night the campus transforms. Shadows deepen, and the old buildings seem to guard secrets from centuries past. The most famous legend is Sister Margaret, a young nun who, after a scandal, climbed the chapel's bell tower one stormy night and leapt to her death. Her ghost, they say, is angry, trapped, and vengeful. Students whisper of seeing her shadow in the belfry, hearing her scream on the wind, or feeling a cold spot on the chapel steps. The story is a warning: respect the chapel, and never enter the tower after dark. Most of us laughed it off, until the night we decided to test it. The legend was more than a story, it was a history, waiting for someone foolish enough to disturb it. We were those fools. The dare started as a joke. Liam bet me $100 we could climb the chapel tower at midnight and nothing would happen. It was the kind of challenge that sounded easy in the daylight when the world felt safe and the shadows were just shadows. But as the sun set and the campus emptied, the idea took on a life of its own, growing darker and more thrilling with every passing hour. I should have said no, but curiosity and bravado won out. There was something about the way Liam grinned, daring me to back down, that made it impossible to refuse. Besides, I told myself, it was just an old building. What could possibly go wrong? We planned our secret mission, learning from a choir friend that a side door sometimes didn't latch. We mapped out every step, whispering in hushed voices, convinced we were masterminds pulling off the heist of the century. We agreed to meet at the chapel steps at 1:45 a.m., aiming to be inside as the clock struck 2. The time felt important, as if the hour itself would unlock some hidden secret. As I crossed the dark campus, my confidence faded, replaced by dread. Every footstep echoed too loudly, and the wind seemed to whisper warnings I tried to ignore. The familiar buildings looked menacing, every sound a threat. The trees cast twisted shadows, and even the lamplight felt cold and distant, as if the whole campus was holding its breath. By the time I saw Liam waiting, flashlight in hand, the dare felt like a mistake. His face was pale and his hands shook just a little, betraying nerves he tried to hide. We exchanged a look, half excitement, half fear, knowing we were both in too deep to back out now. He tried to smile, but I saw the fear in his eyes. The bravado from earlier was gone, replaced by a silent question. Are we really going to do this? We were really doing this, walking into the heart of a ghost story. Every legend we'd ever heard about the chapel echoed in my mind, making my heart pound faster. There was no turning back. The door loomed before us, heavy and ancient, daring us to cross the threshold. The campus was silent, the chapel looming before us. It felt like the whole world had shrunk to this one moment, this one choice. We stepped into the unknown, hearts pounding, breath held, not knowing what waited for us inside the darkness. Liam led us to the ivy-covered side door and pushed. It creaked open into darkness. The air inside was stale and cold, thick with the scent of old hymnals and candle wax. We slipped in, shutting the door behind us. The latch echoed like a gunshot. Liam's flashlight revealed empty pews and towering stone pillars vanishing into shadow. The stained glass windows were black voids, the altar barely visible. The silence was suffocating, every step amplified in the vast empty space. We walked down the central aisle, nerves frayed, glancing over our shoulders. The chapel felt enormous, sacred and wrong, as if we were trespassing on something ancient. I had the terrifying sense we were not alone. At the altar we heard it, the chanting, faint at first, then all around us. Liam killed the flashlight, we stood in darkness, the ghostly choir swelling. A wave of cold washed over us, deeper than before, making us shiver uncontrollably. I grabbed Liam's arm, he was trembling, skin ice cold. The chapel felt desecrated, the air thick and hard to breathe. Liam's flashlight flickered on, the pews and choir loft were empty, but the chanting grew louder. Panic set in. This was no prank. The dare had a hold on us, compelling us forward. Liam whispered, "The tower, we have to go up." Every instinct screamed to run, but we moved toward the door by the altar, the way to the bell tower. The chanting followed, a soundtrack to our doom. We opened the door to the tower, stepping into deeper darkness. Sister Margaret was waiting. The stairwell was narrow, cold, and reeked of dust and something metallic. The chanting faded, replaced by suffocating silence as we climbed. Each step echoed, the walls closing in, dread thickening with every turn. Halfway up, Liam's flashlight revealed an upside-down cross scratched into the stone. More appeared as we climbed, a gallery of desecration. It felt like a warning, but we pressed on. At the top, a heavy wooden door blocked our way. The metallic smell was stronger, the silence absolute. Liam hesitated, then opened the door. We stepped into the belfry, hearts pounding. The chanting was gone, but the horror had just begun. The belfry was open to the night, the great bell looming in the center. In the far window stood a woman in a nun's habit, her back to us, head bowed. We froze, terror rooting us in place. Liam's flashlight beam shook as he called out, but she didn't move. Slowly she turned, her face a blur, eyes glowing with malevolent light. A moan of pure agony escaped her lips. In her hands she clutched an upside-down cross. Panic broke our paralysis. I screamed, "Run!" As we fled, a shriek of rage and pain erupted, inhuman and deafening. We slammed the door behind us, racing down the stairs, the nun's image burned into our minds. The nightmare was only beginning. We fled down the spiral stairs, chased by a guttural laugh echoing from above. Terror gave us speed. We stumbled, scraped, but kept running. The inverted crosses mocked us as we passed. Bursting into the chapel, we found every cross, on altar, pews, windows, turned upside down. The ghostly chanting returned, now loud and triumphant. We sprinted for the main doors, the nuns' glowing eyes burning in the shadows behind us. The doors groaned open. We spilled onto the steps, gasping in the night air. We didn't stop running until the dorm lights were in sight. Collapsing in the hallway, bruised and shaking, we realized we had survived, but not unharmed. We had seen something we shouldn't have, and it had seen us. The chapel was no longer just a legend, it was a curse. The days after were a blur of fear and silence. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer, every creak in the floorboards made my heart race. I barely slept, and when I did, I woke up gasping, convinced something was watching me from the darkness. Liam and I avoided the chapel, haunted by what we'd seen. We crossed the street to avoid even looking at its doors, and the mere sound of the church bells sent chills down our spines. We tried to talk about normal things, but the memory of that night clung to us, unspoken but ever present. A week later, Liam died. An accident, they said, but I knew better. The news spread quickly, but no one wanted to discuss the strange circumstances. I saw the fear in their eyes, the way they whispered behind closed doors. It was as if the whole town sensed something was terribly wrong. His mother spoke of strange burns on his hands and feet, and nightmares of a woman in black. She said he would wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, begging for forgiveness. The doctors had no explanation, and the marks looked almost like they'd been branded by something not of this world. He had met the same fate as Sister Margaret. The parallels were undeniable, the same wounds, the same terror in their final days. It was as if the past was repeating itself and we were powerless to stop it. The spirit we awakened had followed us. I felt its presence everywhere. Cold drafts in closed rooms, whispers in the silence, a sense of being watched that never left me. It was relentless, feeding on our fear. Now, I live in fear, haunted by the nun's eyes and the chanting that sometimes drifts through my window at night. The sound is faint but unmistakable, a mournful hymn that chills me to the bone. I see her face in every reflection, her gaze accusing, unblinking. I write this as a warning. If you visit Immaculata, admire the campus, but stay away from the chapel after dark. The beauty of the grounds hides something ancient and vengeful. Curiosity is not worth the price you might pay. Don't let bravado or disbelief lead you to the tower. The stories are not just legends. They are warnings, left behind by those who barely escaped. I wish I had listened. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. There are doors that should never be opened, and questions that should remain unanswered. The cost of knowing is far too high. I looked upon the nun on the tower and now I am haunted. Don't make my mistake. The memory is a weight I carry every day, a shadow that never leaves. Never ever enter the tower after midnight. If you value your soul, heed this warning. Some places are cursed, and some spirits never rest.